GLP1 is part of the innate immunity system in the body. And it causes the innate immunity system of the body has macrophages in it, and they are used to like phagocytize or eat up bacteria and viruses and stuff like that. The GLP1 causes these macrophages in the innate immune system to polarize or change shape and function into an M2 phenotype to promote immune tolerance, wound healing, and tissue remodeling. This is M2 is anti-inflammatory. So M2 is part of adaptive immunity and is related to Th2, which are the anti-inflammatory cytokines. Th1 is the other kind of like teeter-totter part of the T helper cells. And Th1 is activated by viruses and bacteria, which promote the inflammatory M1 macrophages and can cause hypersensitivity and autoimmunity. Th2, which is the part that of the immune system that is like secondarily activated by GLP1, is part of the adaptive immune system and typically activated by helminths or worms, stress, inflammation, mold, candida, pesticides, BPA. Those things promote an macrophage 2 response. And if the Th2 is overactivated, that will promote allergies and hypersensitivity. So we talked before about how macrophages in general are related to the innate immune system, and that the GLP1 is related to the innate immune system, which is the barrier system, first line of defense. However, once the adaptive system is kind of activated, then it can turn on. Once the innate system is activated, it can turn on the adaptive system, right? And we'll have polarization of those naive macrophages into either M1 or M2. So M1 is the pro-inflammatory macrophage. M2 is the pro-resolution or anti-inflammatory macrophage that is associated with GLP1. So we say M2 is anti-inflammatory, and that's one of the big things that GLP1 does is anti-inflammatory. However, it's better to think of it as pro-resolution. So it's part of what it does, like with wound healing, is that it's going to provoke production of vascular endothelial growth factor, which causes neovascularization, so new vascularization to form so that a wound can be healed. And it'll also produce the transforming growth factor so you can get new tissue and that wound healing. It's going to eat up bacteria that could prevent resolution of a wound, for instance. There's going to be growth factors, modulation of reactive oxygen species. Iron will be stabilized. And also part of this idea of M2, the pro-resolution or the anti-inflammatory, is that it's bringing blood, right? And so what else needs blood? Tumors, cancer, they need more blood. They suck up blood. And so not only do we have like this kind of like positive potential with an M2 response, of healing from wounds, we also have more blood, more growth factors, and a tumor or cancer can take advantage of that situation. And so we want to keep that in the back of our mind also. What influences GLP-1 production? So we talked about food before, but also diseases can change influence production, so that we see with diabetes, with obesity, fatty liver disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, there's a decrease in production of GLP-1. This is kind of interesting, right? Because those are all inflammatory conditions. Those are highly inflammatory conditions. Those cause a decrease in GLP-1. You would think GLP-1 is anti-inflammatory. So why wouldn't you have an increase in GLP-1 secretion with those highly inflammatory states? We do have an increase in GLP-1 with other inflammatory states. So if you have terminal ileal Crohn's disease, that will cause an increase in GLP-1 production. If you have ulcerative colitis, that causes an increase in GLP-1 production. If you have diverticulitis, that causes an increase in GLP-1 production. Gut inflammation will also cause an increase in the lipopolysaccharides, LPS, and that LPS or lipopolysaccharides cause inflammation, and that will cause an increase in GLP-1 production. And so the thought is that, well, yeah, if there's inflammation, we want to dampen it and we want to heal things. And so that's great. We should have GLP-1 production. We should have that provocation of an M2 response to get some healing going on there and decrease the inflammation. That makes sense. That's awesome. But then why do we have decreased GLP-1 production if there's obesity or diabetes, PCOS, the fatty liver disease? Why does it happen with that? So the evidence on the celiac disease is a little bit mixed. Some of the studies say they have less GLP-1, some say they have a normal amount. And so it's a little bit mixed here. The findings are inconsistent. But the idea is that if there is a decreased amount in some people, then that seems to be related to pancreatic dysfunction in those folks who have celiac disease. So the question that we want to ask is, what comes first? Does low GLP-1 cause obesity and diabetes? Is that what puts people into an inflammatory state so that they will have obesity and diabetes? Or do the inflammatory conditions of obesity and diabetes cause low GLP-1? In this Danish study that compared people with normal blood glucose, prediabetes, and diabetes, those folks were subgrouped into normal weight, overweight, and obese folks. And then all of them were given an oral glucose tolerance test, and the results were compared. And what they found was that GLP-1 release precipitated the development of diabetes or obesity, which is to say there was a change in the amount of GLP production before the development of diabetes or obesity. So GLP-1 decrease was what could have been a factor in developing obesity and diabetes.